Ho ho buddies, welcome to Borderline Games. I'm Gareth and today we're playing Chaos Head. Last time we spoke to the police and we told them all about the murder that happened that we witnessed with the crucifixes. We also said that we were scared of them. What else did we say? We gave them our number for them to get in touch with us, and then we went home and felt the gaze on the back of her neck. We turned round and lo and behold, our little murderer was behind us. And then she claims that she is our classmate. She's a friend of ours and... what's his name? Hizumi? No, that doesn't sound right. What is his name? Misumi. Is that what I said? I said Hisumi. Misumi. So a friend with Misumi and a friend with Taku as well, which is me. But we don't have any memory of hanging out. Apparently recently we went to the cinema. But we don't remember any of that. Why? Let's find out. Sighing in minor disappointment, the demon girl put away her handkerchief, and then with a triumphant look at her face, she asked me a question. So, what did Daichin say? She was acting like she already knew the answer. I couldn't afford to answer her. What was she? An ordinary classmate of mine? Or a monster? I had no idea. Maybe I was the crazy one. Taking the chat with Shogun into consideration, I couldn't rule out the possibility that someone other than myself was controlling my body. Or maybe all my memories of the demon girl, of the girl named Sakihata Rimi, had somehow gotten knocked right out of me due to some freak accident or something. At this point I didn't know anything about myself for sure. Did I have amnesia? Did I sleepwalk? Or could it be something else entirely? Are you okay? If you're not feeling good, you could try lying down on the sofa. The demon girl spoke to me kindly. Don't let your guard down. Anyone who acts nice to an otaku freak, like me, must have some kind of ulterior motive. I shook my head, putting my strong will to resist against the demon girl on full display. Then using that same strength I raised my head. Sweat got in my eyes, blurring my vision. The demon girl's face was a lot closer than I'd expected it to be. What colour eyes were those? Why? Why what? Are you here? Why are you here? Why? Because I came to see you. Duh. Are you mad that I came in without asking? Then again, that's totally your fault for not answering. I was knocking for a really long time, you know. I thrusted the cell phone she'd given me back at her. As I watched the demon girl timidly take it back, I asked her once again. Why? What's it this time? Are you here? What was her reason for coming here? If she'd come to kill me, she'd have done it a long time ago. So why wasn't she doing anything? Oh, you want to know why I'm here? Just a sec. The demon girl reached into her bag and pulled out a single sheet of paper. This is why. I brought it here. The worksheet asking about what you want to do when you graduate and stuff. So here, post-graduation aspirations. I found myself taking it from her without really thinking. She wasn't lying. The piece of paper did have post-graduation's aspirations written on it, along with 3 blank spaces to write your answers in. Was that it? Was that really all she'd come for? Go home. I don't want anything to do with her. I don't want anything to do with any 3D girls. This is a trap. Don't listen to her. This isn't reality. This is a game. One filled with bugs. There were way too many contradictions. It doesn't hold together as a proper story. And then I went to sleep. Stay away from me. If you don't intend to kill me, then just leave me alone. I am me. Some me that isn't me maybe friends with Sakihata Rimi, but that me has nothing to do with the current me. Cradling my head, I closed myself off completely. I kept trembling and trembling, envisioning that the girl known as Sakihata Rimi wasn't there anymore. Not long after, I heard the sound of the door opening, telling me that the demon girl had left. And like that, she was gone. Was that a delusion or not? In the midst of a pitch-black room, the pale light of a PC monitor cut through the darkness. Pictured on the screen was a Sarah screensaver from Bloodtune the animation. While there had been a girl by the name of Sakahati Rumi present in the container half a day prior, the only figure that remained was the container's owner, Nishijo Takumi. It was already 5 in the morning. In Takumi's daily life, he would play online games until dawn and then collapse onto the sofa once he could not keep his eyes open any longer. Even now, Takumi was asleep on the couch, twisted in a seemingly uncomfortable position. He never used his bed for sleep. He did indeed have a proper bed, but it was already occupied by manga, CDs, and other random piled-up media. He could never be bothered to tidy it up, so his bed had effectively been repurposed into this storeroom. Ever since then, he'd utilised his 2-person sofa as his one and only place to sleep. A pained moan escaped from Takumi's lips. Perhaps he was having a nightmare. His entire body was perspiring, and his closed eyelids twitched and trembled. His expression was rapt, warped in agony, and he was tossing and turning so frequently he came very close to falling off the couch. Right before he did, however, his eyes suddenly and inexplicably shot open as he faced the ceiling. They were bloodshot and his eyeballs were faintly convulsing. Still in that state, without blinking, even a single time he rose from the sofa, he slowly staggered toward the PC. Without sitting down, he moved the mouse as he stood there before the desk. The screensaver disappeared and his desktop showed itself. The pale light of the monitor shone on Takumi's face, illuminating his horrifyingly vacant expression. His body swayed back and forth and his mouth hung slightly ajar. Drool seeped down his chin. Is he sleepwalking? His current state was a textbook example of sleepwalking. There we go. The delirious boy launched the web browser, then opened that channel. His movement itself was languid and slow, but he showed no hesitation in selecting a thread from the board relating to NewGen. The board listed a total of around 60 threads, and Takumi slowly opened each of them one by one. And then, with his eyes remaining glued to the monitor, he began to type. He repeated this action for each and every thread. His posts were not particularly long, only housing a few characters each, but they were all composed of the exact same sentence. Wow. Whose eyes are those eyes? Shogun. Back at the doctor's, I went to the hospital first thing next morning. They hadn't confirmed it was the last time I'd come here. But today, they would definitely tell me I was normal. Dr. Takashina would remember me. I'd tell him, it's me, Nishijoru. I was your patient until around 4 years ago, and then he'd tell me everything I needed to hear. I wasn't the crazy one. It was the demon girl, and it was Masumi-kun. They were the crazy ones. That was definitely what he was going to say. This hospital opened at 8 in the morning, which was a little bit earlier than regular hospitals. That was the reason why I'd shown up, right when it opened, and yet. The seats in the lobby were already filled with countless middle-aged people, or older. What the hell? Why? The hospital had just opened, so why were there so many people here? Don't you bastards know head starts are unfair? Come on, time like you're supposed to. Oh, that's funny. Come on, time like you're supposed to, assholes. I was like, come on, time like you're supposed to. Then I realised that didn't make sense. As I continued to insult them inside my head, I had no choice but to wait. About an hour passed before I really started to regret not having made an appointment. Oops. But right after I started thinking that, they called my name, and I was immediately relieved to know that I wouldn't have to wait as long as last week. Except the one waiting for me in the examination room wasn't Dr. Takashina, but some white-haired old man that I'd never seen before. Where's Dr. Takashina? Noticing my confusion, the nurse standing right behind him, I think her name was Hazuki-san, gave an apologetic look. I'm afraid Dr. Takashina is no longer here. He... what? Rather to be specific, he collapsed from fatigue last weekend. He's taken the week off to rest. Interesting. What? This couldn't be happening. My one and only ally. Wait, had he really collapsed from fatigue? It's a conspiracy orchestrated by the demon girl. Nishijo-san? She had to have poisoned his food or sent him a death threat to scare him into a submission or done some other horrible act to psychologically break him. This had to be the work of the demon girl. She was trying to isolate me from my allies, so I'd be defenseless against her assault. There was no way in hell I was going to let anyone other than Dr. Takashina examine me. So instead of getting a checkup, I ran away from the hospital. Good call. Damn it. Leaning on the fence at the edge of the roof, I blankly stared up at the sky. The skies of Shibuya were dim and lifeless. You'd have to be crazy to call them clear. I shouldn't go to the hospital anymore. The demon girl's net was tightening around me. Maybe I already had nowhere to run. Maybe the detectives I'd met yesterday were imposters. Maybe in reality, they'd been the demon girl's underlings all along, and they'd just been testing me. That had to be it. The timing was just way too perfect. The demon girl had broken into my room right after I talked to them, for fuck's sake. She was a demon after all. She wasn't human. Controlling and manipulating the human mind would be child's play for her. I had no evidence of that, though. But at the same time, I had no evidence proving she wasn't a demon. Which meant that the only way to stay alive was to just assume the worst case scenario. Did I really have nobody on my side? It felt like everyone was against me. No matter where I looked. No matter who it was. All I saw was yet another one of the demon girl's underlings. Save me. Somebody. Save me. Why didn't I have even a single ally? Why wouldn't anyone come save me? Why did only I have to suffer so much? I felt more helpless than ever. I just wanted something to support me. Someone who would protect me. Something that would protect me. I didn't care who or what it was, just someone, something. Please grant me salvation. And then, just as suddenly, Fez's, Koshimuto Ayase's face appeared in my mind. I remembered what she said to me when we'd met at school. I'd been lost in my own delusions at the time, but Masuma-kun told me what she'd said. Find a sword. If you do, you'll be granted salvation. A sword. If this was a game, I'd be the protagonist. And there'd be a cliché story moment where I'd obtain the legendary sword and triumph over evil. At this point, I'd heard the word sword from 2 different 3D girls recently. And in extremely close proximity at that. There still remained the possibility that Fez was on my side. Girl B, however, I think her name was Sina? Had a pretty high chance of being one of the demon girl's underlings, judging by her attitude. A sword. A sword. If I can get a sword, then I'll be... I started talking to myself like I'd lost my mind. I was grasping at straws at this point. If I just get my hands on a sword, I might be freed from this nightmare. I couldn't help but hope for that. It wasn't that I believed that Fez had said about it granting me salvation. I just had nothing else to cling to. At the very least, I should do some research. Delude search. I promptly tried searching for it online. I started off by checking to see if the swords Fez and Cena were carrying appeared in any anime, but I couldn't find anything, at least from the seasonals. I'd expected as much. I always checked out the newest anime after all. Considering there were upwards of 30 to 40 of them in one season, it'd really pile up on me if I tried to watch them at all. If I tried to watch them all, so I just watched the first couple of episodes and figured out which ones to keep following from there. Naturally, since MewTube existed, I had no trouble completing my lineup from channels such as BS and CS. So there was no way I'd overlooked any anime. And those swords weren't in any of the shows I'd checked out. The swords both had extremely distinctive shapes, so if they'd showed up, I definitely would have remembered them. Although if someone other than myself had been controlling me when I saw it, then there was nothing I could do about it. Next, I tried searching for the swords themselves rather than anime they might have appeared in. Damn it. They're almost all video game walkthrough sites. Terms I knew well, such as ESO's Shangri-La Edge, kept popping up. I was making no progress. For fuck's sake, I was supposed to be able to find it quickly. I had a feeling that Sinner had used a more concrete name for it, but what had it been? Remember, the nightmare won't end unless you remember. What had she said? Answer me. You see it, don't you? The Die Sword. Or D-Sword. D-Sword? That was it. She called it the D-Sword. I quickly typed it in and ran a search. There it is. I got hits. Only 2 of them, though. Even so, I was already starting to think of those 2 links as my road to salvation. Holding back my excitement, I clicked on the top one first. Uh-oh. Shit, the page was down. Damn it, what the hell? Okay, calm down. Go back and look at the cache. The page had an illustration on it. Must have been a recreation based on how the sword was described in various books. D. Cool. It is D-Sword. It's from a legend. But compared to the one that Cena Girl had, it's really plain. Why did it have to be such a niche sword to begin with? I mean, why couldn't it have been a sword like Excalibur or Kusanagi? You know, the swords that were actually a big deal. No, this wasn't the time to piss and moan. Niche or mainstream, I didn't care as long as it could save me. I decided to research it a bit more. Continuing, I clicked the second link. The words, "I bought a D-Sword," caught my eye specifically. Were D-Swords something you could buy? The blog owner seemed to be male, so I could deduce that it couldn't be the Demon Girl or Cena. And the energy shown in the writing was way too different from Shogun's. Was he a completely unrelated third party? Or could he have deliberately changed his writing style? What the fuck? I knew that no answer would come to me no matter how much I thought about it. So I gave up and stopped looking at the blog. Gave up and stopped. Okay, well, I'm clearly looking at it still. More importantly, it seemed like the store he'd mentioned, Town Vanguard, was located in Shibuya. I had the feeling that it was too good to be true, but I also had the feeling that it was predestined, too. Looking at it from another angle, maybe the exact reason I'd run into a girl holding a D-sword in the middle of Shibuya twice was because the store was located there. Wait, wasn't underground stuff like this supposed to be secretly be popular among a few minority groups in Shibuya? Pretty sure it was. Anyway, I went ahead and ran a search for Town Vanguard. It didn't seem to have an official site, but I did find a preview image of it on an online map. If they didn't have an official site, that probably meant that they didn't take online orders. I tried searching for them as a seller on Taboo Auctions, but I didn't find anything. Which meant that I would have to go to the store in person. I really didn't want to go outside, but I have to get a sword. I have no other choice. I now come to think of the sword as my sole, only means of opposing the demon girl. I didn't have any idea what I would actually do after I got it. I certainly wasn't brave enough to kill her with it, not even close. Even so, I had hope that if I got my hands on a sword, I would be released somewhat from the terror that was tormenting me. The D-sword would be my protective charm, something I could depend on. There was something strangely alluring about that sword. I can't imagine that the sword is the solution to the problem here. I feel like we're barking up the wrong tree, I think. It seemed like the store was located somewhere near Cat Street. Cat Street was a long, winding road next to Meiji-dori that ran from Shibuya to Harajuku. Apparently it had been built on top of an old stream that had been reclaimed a while back. There were a bunch of reasons as to why people started calling it Cat Street, such as it being frequented by feral cats, or that it was so narrow that only cats would use it, but it wasn't like it made a difference to me either way. Cat Street was pretty far away from my base. It took me about 15 to 20 minutes to get there on foot. It'd be much faster by bike, but unfortunately I didn't have one. I decided to take a route that went past the front of the train station, then through Shoto, by cutting through Miyashita Park. Quickening my pace a bit, I crossed the overpass that went over Meiji-dori. Phew, I'd finally arrived. I was starting to get really impatient. The sheer distance was pissing me off. Cat Street was nice and quiet compared to Sentai, and it felt pretty much like Harajuku than Shibuya. The stores lining the streets here were only aimed at trend chasers. I wanted nothing to do with it. Fuck them, to be honest. TBH. Knowing how out of place I was just made me all the more pissed off. It was complete foreign territory. Every last one of the assholes around me thought they were so damn cool. There were even more couples sauntering around than in the shopping district. Whatever. They were probably just a bunch of broke shitheads trying to pretend they had money. So they were likely just window shopping. Lamau. Waste of space. I was starting to regret coming here at all. But I reminded myself that all the suffering would be worth it once I got a sword. So I just sucked it up and kept walking. In order to avoid making eye contact with anyone, I kept my eyes firmly trained on my map as I speed walked through my destination. Town Vanguard was deep into a narrow side road that split off from Cat Street. Is this it? Even though I'd only gone one side street away from the main road, the atmosphere had changed dramatically. It was a narrow, cramped, filthy alley that no car could travel through. The street was lined with wooden houses, out-of-business stores with closed shutters and the inevitable spray-painted graffiti that covered said shutters. Despite how nice it had looked from the outside with all its high-class name-brand stores, Cat Street 2 was nothing more than a superficial facade. And behind that facade lay a whole host of broken down, mercilessly discarded junk heaps. Then again, I couldn't stand the place either way. Both the bullshit and the truth were foreign territory for me. The only home for me was ESO. Even for the back streets though, Town Vanguard had an even smaller, darker atmosphere than I was expecting. I was finally starting to get why the blogger had called it shady. Even though an open sign was hanging on the door, it didn't exactly look like business was booming. And that was being generous. Thanks to that, it was extremely hard to convince myself to go in. How was I, a guy who couldn't even go to into a Gyundan shop by himself, supposed to even enter a sketchy-ass store like this? I wanted to go home. No. I needed to get my hands on a sword, no matter what. Ugh, what should I do? What am I to do? I spent a little while trying and failing to get myself to go in. Not a single person came through the cramped alley. I'd already spent 30 minutes waffling over what to do, but I still hadn't seen a single soul since I'd gone off the road. All that happened was I would finally decide to suck it up and go in, but then I would realise I wasn't brave enough. Repeat ad nauseum. But I couldn't go home empty-handed. This was the only place I could get my hands on a D-sword. Even though my sense of reason told me that, my instincts made me hesitate to enter the shop. In my mind, I had a delusion where the clerk came out to me. Of course, she was a cute maid and she talked to me with a voice straight out of an anime. She knew exactly what I wanted, and she held the D-sword out to me, friendly as could be. "Here you are. Please take this sword, master." Okay, that's enough. Chill out, me. Just as I was thinking about how much nicer it'd be if things turned out that way, a lone 3D girl appeared from within the store, almost like she'd somehow heard my thoughts. However, unlike my delusion, she was wearing disgustingly gaudy clothes, the type that made you think, what Indian tribe did she steal those from? Okay. Takumi, ease up. But at the same time, despite the get-up, she looked absolutely miserable. Talk about whiplash. Her hair was incredibly frizzy to the point where it looked like her head had exploded and creepy patterns were scrawled on the bandana that she had twisted around it. She said that she was a store worker and had come out after seeing me pacing outside. My delusion hadn't exactly become reality, but it wasn't like I was expecting it to. Before I knew what was happening, the clerk forcibly showed me inside despite how reluctant I was to do so. I didn't even have the chance to turn her down. In the end, I found myself inside the store. It was all well and good that I'd cleared the most difficult obstacle, but if this store was under the Demon Girl's control, and everything about the D-sword was just an elaborate trap to lure me to it, I wouldn't be allowed to complain if I got killed right here. My eyes darted around the store's dim interior. There wasn't a single customer. The air was awfully stagnant and slightly hazy. The unpleasant odour of tobacco and mould mixed together invaded my nostrils. I felt like I was going to be sick if I stayed here for any more than 5 minutes. Though I saw things that looked like products, it was difficult to judge whether or not they were actually for sale. All of them had been placed haphazardly, and there was no way to distinguish them from just plain old garbage. It didn't help that not a single one of them had a price tag. I didn't notice it until after I'd come in, but there were a whole lot of porn and sex toys, Among them were devices you'd see in Rape and Humiliation type Eroge, and I had no idea where to find a safe place to look. Jesus. This store must have had been a variety shop for adults or something. After forcing me into the store, the clerk sat down on a stool behind the counter, then proceeded to zone out as she smoked. She showed no indication that she was going to continue meddling with me. She was probably a partial source of the haze in here. Even though it had been less than a minute since I'd come in, anxiety, a weird sense of pressure, and the embarrassment all combined with how sick I was feeling in the form of a disgusting sweat seeping out of my forehead. I wanted to get out of this otherworldly place as soon as possible. I had to hurry up and find a D-sword quick. I walked toward the back as I looked throughout the store. I soon found the fantasy weapons section, which had been mentioned in the blog I'd found. This corner of the store was the only one that stood out to me. Numerous pole-shaped toys were neatly displayed. All of the toys were tubes of some sort. They were different colours, but pretty much all of them were lightsabers. You could tell pretty easily from how shoddy they were that they were all bootleg. I doubted they would even glow. It seemed like the light shuriken talked about in the blog was sold out, which surprised me. Yet, mixed in with the lightsabers was a single item that was clearly different from the rest. It only took one look for me to know that it was a D-sword. It looked almost like, exactly like the illustration I'd seen online. I went to pick it up. It was unexpectedly light. I wondered what it was made of, but it definitely seemed like some sort of vinyl. It wasn't sharp at all. The edges were slippery and naturally it didn't hurt me in the slightest when I ran my fingers across it. Compared to the ones Cena and Fez had, it was badly designed, had no sense of weight, and above all else, it didn't give me the sense that it would sever anything with just the slightest touch. Could it be fake? That worried me, but there wasn't anything else in the store that resembled a D-sword. Would this even give off light at all? The D-sword Fez had swung around at her show had pieces of glass embedded in it that gave off a blue light and looked extremely badass. But I didn't see a single shard of glass in the sword I was holding. Maybe I shouldn't buy it. The D-sword was so shoddily made that I couldn't help but come to that conclusion, despite how long it had taken me to get here. But find a sword. If you do, you'll be granted salvation. I remembered Fez's words. Right, if I didn't buy it right here and now, I'd lose my only chance of getting my hands on a D-sword. Maybe it only looked cheap. Once it recognised me as its true master, an incredible power would manifest within it. Or maybe I'd seen too much anime, or read one too many manga. Maybe. But I had sensed that exact kind of unknown power in Cena and Fez's words. Swords. So this sword should have it too, but what to do? While my internal debate raged on, the clerk came up and stood right behind me without me noticing. With a melancholic smirk, she pointed at the D-sword and muttered, 10,000 yen, and I'll throw in a free bonus. How absurdly cheap it was made me doubt my own ears at first. I had amassed quite a bit of cash from RMT, and if it was only 10,000 yen, I could buy it simply by sacrificing a single figure. When I'd heard the price, and when I'd realised that it was the last one that they had left, I'd come to an immediate decision. The bonus that had come with it was a cheap-looking bangle. To be frank, I didn't want it in the slightest. We've got it. We've got the sword. Everything's going to be okay. Everything after that was hell. Okay. Alright, well that's the end of this episode of Borderline Games. We're going to find out what was hell next time on Chaos Head. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Chaos Head. Choking on my words there. And I will see you next time. Have a sip of water. And I will see you next time. Have a good evening. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye. Bye.